So here at the summit, you have already heard a lot about and are going to hear more about that moment, that initial spark of an idea, and then carrying that idea through to an actual product that you can launch and put to use for communities. But I'm going to talk about sort of the less glamorous part of that process towards the end, after that initial thrill of the launch starts to wear off. But before I get there, I want to back up a little bit. So as Mike mentioned, our team has come a pretty long way in the last year. We have formed a company. We have received a generous investment from the Knight Foundation. Thank you. We have formed 2 partnerships with some really influential government software providers, Acela and Esri. We have endured and triumphed through 6 months of incubation with CfA's inaugural incubator. And our product itself has seen countless iterations, the latest of which is about to be released in a few weeks, which is really exciting. But this transition from fellowship project, Blight Status, to startup, Civic Insight, didn't really happen accidentally. It actually happened to 2 other fellowship projects that happened in my year, Texasin and Local Data. So what happened is when we launched our applications throughout the course of our fellowship year, we started to hear from cities across the country, municipalities all over, who were interested in putting our tools to work for their communities. But the really exciting part was that they weren't just interested in using them the way that we originally launched them. They had innovative ideas about how they wanted to put our tools to work. So to use my project as an example, it wasn't just cities like New Orleans, cities that were really tackling head-on the issues of blight and vacancy, who wanted to put our tool to work. Take Palo Alto, for example. Palo Alto is a city that's growing really rapidly, and they are really focused on making it easy to build and start businesses in the city. And even though the primary story around our application was to track blight, like how Mike explained, our partners in Palo Alto took a deeper look, and they really saw the underlying core of our application, which at its most fundamental level is simply making information about the complex and usually pretty opaque processes that govern properties easier to understand and access for everybody. So when you start thinking about it on that level, you realize that our application could actually be just as successful in demystifying, say, the permitting process in Palo Alto as it originally was for the code enforcement process in New Orleans. And what was really cool about this transition is that it forced us to improve our product. Palo Alto approached us with this challenge, and it made us look back at our code, make some small changes so that we could actually accommodate additional civic processes like permitting. So now we have a tool that's applicable for more cities and useful for more communities, and that's rad. And it's not just us. So the 2012 Detroit Fellows created Local Data during their fellowship, originally as a tool to empower communities to collect data in their neighborhoods without the need for an expert. But now it's not just communities that are using local data. It's being used by nonprofits, by even the private sector, and academic institutions as well. And they're collecting a lot more subtle data points as well. So, for example, the city of Malden, Massachusetts, recently used local data to measure the impact of lighting, street lighting, on the perception of safety. And this was all sort of towards the planning of a nighttime retail corridor. So you guys can imagine why that would be really important. Texasin is another great example, the text messaging feedback platform that works via SMS, which was originally created by the Philadelphia team during my year as well. They've actually seen adoption by over 35 organizations, from school boards to municipalities to nonprofits and even private consultants. And just to sort of show you the range, in the course of 1 month, Texasin worked both with a city that was struggling with population loss and also one that was trying to accommodate rapid growth. So to give you a little more details, in Flint, Michigan, the city wanted to get some feedback on a proposed plan for some land use changes so that they could understand the impact on the community before they actually put the plan into action. And then on the other end of the spectrum, Hillsborough County in Florida solicited feedback from citizens on the city's, actually the county's plan to create an elevated bypass to handle rapidly increasing traffic. And because of Texasin's unique blend of offline outreach and online engagement, citizens were really able to imagine what this proposed plan would look like before they gave their feedback, so it ended up being more impactful. So who cares? Why are these three stories connected? Why do they matter? The through line that I see is that while we may be the ones who make the technology available and make it possible, it's the communities that we serve and the partners that we work with who actually breathe life into the technology. Because our partners are constantly challenging us to think about our applications in new ways, it means that we are actually constantly improving and changing our tools to accommodate those needs and make them more flexible and more useful for everybody. And sort of that consistent iteration and that sort of long-term process is possible because by being civic startups, we've committed to being in this for the long haul. By choosing that path of starting a business, we're actually trying to create the support infrastructure that makes it possible for the innovation that's happening and coming from this community here to sustain into the long term. So for me, personally, I founded a civic startup because I want to be on the hook. I want to make it safe for government to take a risk on innovation and trying new things because they know that at the end of the day, there's somebody there who is going to keep the lights on even when that last piece of pizza runs out at the hackathon. So what I sort of ask of everybody here is even if you're not in a position to work with any of the startups here, come talk to us anyway. Take the time to talk to a civic startup today because, as Jen mentioned earlier this morning, there are some things that are simply better done together. So help us learn from you so that together we can build a more sustainable future of civic innovation. Thank you.